Hi, I'm Carey. I am your Business Law 2211 instructor for the summer 8-week class at the College of DuPage. As you all know, I was very happy with Unit 2 overall. Interestingly, surprisingly, and I was pleasantly surprised, the average grade for Quiz 2 was higher by 3.5 points than for Quiz 1. The material for Quiz 2, Introduction to Contracts, was more difficult than the introductory material in Unit 1. Maybe you guys focused more, maybe there was more discipline, used to familiarity with the course. I don't really know. But in any event, I was very happy, and we are going to move on now to Unit 3, which is due Wednesday, July 18th at 11:59 p.m. Unit 3 starts out in Chapter 13 with the word assent. It's about assent, which means, was there really an agreement to the contract? And it talks about mistake. Was there a mistake? Mistake will rarely nullify a contract in the real world, but sometimes it does. Sometimes it does. If there's a mutual mistake of fact or something. Then we're going to talk about fraud, and fraud is a big deal because not everybody tells the truth, as you know. And then we're going to talk a little bit about duress, which is pretty straightforward. You had a homework assignment on it. And then they'll touch on undue influence. When I teach Business Law 2211 in the class, we do some interesting cases about undue influence. It's usually about widows or widowers who marry quickly after their spouse's demise, have a bunch of money, and they leave it all to the new spouse, and the kids don't get anything. And needless to say, none of us like that very much. And then there's a lawsuit for undue influence, and they're hard to prove, to tell you the truth. So that's Chapter 13. And then we get into another defense to a contract, which is very important in Chapter 14, the statute of frauds. And the reality is there are verbal contracts that are valid. The problem is verbal contracts are never a good idea because it becomes a he said, she said situation. If somebody calls you up and says, you want to buy my $30 toaster, and you say yes, that's a valid contract. It's a sale of goods under $500. However, what if you show up with $30 and they'll say, I never had a phone call with you. So it can get complicated, and by far the best thing is to put everything in writing. But there are certain situations, Chapter 14 covers them, that must be in writing. Sale of anything about an interest in land, sale of goods for $500 or more, a promise to pay the debt of another. You want to pay my credit card? Just email me or text me. It's fine. But the email and text would be valid. Don't call me because it would be meaningless in the law. And then promises made in consideration of marriage and must be in writing. Prenups. In class we get into some pretty famous prenups. And then promises which cannot, it's impossible to complete them within a year. You can work for me as long as you want. Technically that doesn't have to be in writing because you could get sick of your boss after an hour. Chapter 15, we get into what discharges a contract. Rarely but impossible situations that discharge a contract. And we also talk about conditions. Condition precedent. You get a certain commission if you sell this many items. Condition subsequent. You have this job, but if you flunk a drug test, I can terminate you. And concurrent conditions like selling a house or buying a house when deeds and mortgages or cash or checks are exchanged simultaneously. So that's Chapter 15. And then Chapter 16, we talk about remedies. What happens when there is a breach? One party does not perform. What happens then? There are money damages available, and there are also, if money damages aren't adequate, there are equitable remedies, specific performance, injunction, restitution, reformation. All that is covered in Chapter 16. There's obviously an assignment for each chapter. Also, in these contract chapters, I think it is really helpful to look at the PowerPoints. Look at the corresponding PowerPoints for these chapters, 13, 14, 15, and 16. If you have any questions about the PowerPoints, don't hesitate to contact me. I'm more than happy to answer questions about them. Quiz 3 is 30 questions, due July 18th. Also, too, make sure you do the extra credit. Even if the extra credit doesn't show up configured correctly on Blackboard, I manually grade the extra credit and then calculate it at the end, and it does help. If you have any questions, don't hesitate. I truly am here to help. As a teacher, my job is to serve you and to do the best that you can. It seems like most of you really are, because as I say all the time, taking an 8-week class online is not an easy thing to do. So I appreciate your diligence. I appreciate your focus. Any questions, just let me know.